The text came through at 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, right as I was leaving our offices in Palo Alto after a 16-hour day. Marcus, Lily, about the wedding next month. We need to talk. I stopped walking, standing in the middle of our lobby with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Stanford campus in the distance. My CTO, Raj, was beside me discussing the latest algorithm improvements. Give me a second, I told him, opening the full message. Marcus, Emma and I have been talking about the guest list. Her colleagues from the Times are coming, along with some pretty high-profile journalists. She won a Pulitzer, Lily. This is a big deal for her career. You work in tech support or IT or whatever. It's just not the same level. We think it would be better if you skipped the wedding. Less awkward for everyone. We'll do dinner when we get back from the honeymoon. I read it twice. Then a third time. Raj noticed my expression. Everything okay? My brother just uninvited me from his wedding. What? Why? Because his fiancée is too important to be seen with someone who works in tech support or IT or whatever. Raj's eyes widened. Does he not know you're the CEO of a $2.1 billion company? Apparently not. I'd founded Neural Systems 6 years ago, right out of Stanford's PhD program in artificial intelligence. We developed breakthrough natural language processing algorithms that powered everything from medical diagnostics to legal research. We had 340 employees, offices in 5 countries, and had just closed our Series D funding round at a $2.1 billion valuation. Forbes had called me 3 weeks ago. They wanted to interview me for their 30 under 30 list in the technology category. The interview was scheduled for next week. My brother Marcus, 2 years older than me, was a marketing director at a mid-sized pharmaceutical company in New York. He made good money, had a nice apartment in Brooklyn, and was engaged to Emma Chin, an investigative journalist for the New York Times who'd won a Pulitzer Prize last year for her series on housing discrimination. I'd met Emma exactly twice. Once at their engagement party 8 months ago, where she'd been charming but distracted, already fielding calls from her editor. Once at a family dinner where she'd spent most of the meal on her phone fact-checking sources for a story. Both times when Marcus introduced me, he'd said, "This is my little sister Lily. She works in tech." That was it. Just works in tech. He'd never asked what I did specifically. Never visited my office. Never looked at Neural Systems' website. Never bothered to Google me. To be fair, I'd never corrected him. When I'd first started the company, I told the family I was working on a startup. When we got our first major client, I'd said, the company is doing well. When we raised our Series A, I'd mentioned we'd gotten funding. But I'd never sat Marcus down and said, I'm the CEO and founder of a rapidly growing AI company. Why would I? He'd never asked. I typed a response to his text. Me, understood. Congratulations on the wedding. Nothing else. No explanation. No argument. Just acknowledgement. Marcus didn't respond. Raj was still looking at me with concern. Are you okay? Yeah. I pocketed my phone. What were you saying about the algorithm improvements? We talked about work for another 20 minutes, then I drove home to my apartment in Mountain View. It was small. 1 bedroom, nothing fancy. I'd bought it when the company was still struggling and I'd never bothered to upgrade. Most of my money was reinvested in Neural Systems or sitting in investments I barely paid attention to. That night, I lay in bed thinking about Marcus. About how he'd always been the golden child. Popular, athletic, conventionally successful. I'd been the weird one. Obsessed with computers, more comfortable with code than people, always buried in research papers. Our parents had loved us both, but they'd understood Marcus better. When he'd gotten into Columbia for undergrad, they'd thrown a huge party. When I'd gotten into Stanford's PhD program with a full fellowship, they'd said, "That's nice, honey, but when will you be done with school?" They'd come to Marcus's college graduation. They'd missed my PhD defense because it conflicted with Marcus's company's annual retreat where he was receiving an award for marketing excellence. I'd stopped expecting them to prioritize me a long time ago. But being uninvited from my brother's wedding because I wasn't accomplished enough? That was new. The Forbes interview was scheduled for the following Tuesday at 10 a.m. They were sending Emma Chin to conduct it. I didn't realize this until Monday afternoon when my assistant, Kelly, forwarded me the confirmation email from Forbes. Your interview tomorrow is with Emma Chin from the New York Times, Kelly said, poking her head into my office. She won a Pulitzer last year. This is a big deal. My stomach dropped. Emma Chin, are you sure? Yes, is right here. She's doing a series of profiles for Forbes on young tech leaders. You're one of 6 people she's interviewing. Kelly smiled. You should be excited. This is going to be huge for the company. I stared at the email. Imagine. My brother's fiancée, who thought I worked in IT support. I should have cancelled. Made up an excuse. Rescheduled. But something in me, pride maybe, or stubbornness, or just exhaustion with being invisible, made me leave it. I wanted to see her face when she realized. Tuesday morning arrived cold and bright. I dressed carefully in what I thought of as my CEO uniform. Tailored black pants, a silk blouse, a structured blazer. I wore my Stanford PhD ring and simple diamond studs my grandmother had given me. I looked successful. Professional. Like someone who ran a $2.1 billion company. Emma arrived at 9:58 a.m. Kelly escorted her to our main conference room on the 3rd floor. Through the glass walls, I watched Emma set up her recording equipment, arrange her notes, check her phone. She looked polished in a way I'd never quite mastered. Perfect hair, designer dress, expensive bag. She looked like someone who'd won a Pulitzer Prize. Someone important enough that my brother would uninvite his own sister from his wedding to avoid embarrassing her. At exactly 10 a.m., Kelly knocked on my office door. Miss Parker, Miss Chin is ready for you. I stood, grabbed my tablet with notes about Neural Systems' recent achievements, and walked to the conference room. Emma looked up as I entered, her professional smile in place. Miss Parker, thank you so much for making time. I'm Emma Chin from... She stopped mid-sentence. Her smile froze. Her eyes went wide. Lily. Hello, Emma. What are you? Why are you? She looked at her notes, at me, back at her notes. I'm here to interview Lily Parker, CEO of Neural Systems. That's me. But you're Marcus's sister. Marcus's sister Lily, who works in tech support. I work in tech, I corrected gently. I never said tech support. That was Marcus's assumption. Emma sat down slowly, her polished composure cracking. You're the CEO. You're Lily Parker, the Lily Parker who founded Neural Systems. Yes. The company valued at $2.1 billion. As of our Series D close, yes. The company that Forbes called the most innovative AI startup in Silicon Valley. They were very generous with that assessment. Emma just stared at me. Then she looked at her notes again as if they might have changed. My producer gave me your bio. You have a PhD in AI from Stanford. You published 12 papers before you were 25. You hold 17 patents. You were named one of MIT Technology Review's Innovators Under 35. 18 patents now, actually. We just got approval on the latest one. And Marcus thinks you do tech support. IT support, I think, was his exact phrase. Tech support or IT or whatever. Emma closed her eyes. When she opened them, she looked genuinely distressed. Oh my God. When he uninvited you from the wedding, he said, she stopped. He said you'd won a Pulitzer and I worked in IT. That it wasn't the same level, I finished for her. You knew? He told you that. He texted me last Tuesday. Emma put her head in her hands. I didn't know. He told me his sister couldn't make the wedding because of work conflicts. He said you felt uncomfortable around his professional friends. He made it sound like you were shy and preferred to keep to yourself. I am shy, I said. That part's true. But I didn't uninvite myself. No. He uninvited you because he's an idiot who doesn't know his own sister is more successful than both of us combined. I sat down across from her. Should we do the interview? I can't. Emma looked at me helplessly. Lily, I'm supposed to be interviewing you about your groundbreaking work in AI, about building a billion-dollar company before 30, about being a woman in tech. And all I can think about is that my fiancé is such a self-absorbed ass that he doesn't even know what his own sister does for a living. He's not self-absorbed. He's never been interested in my work. Our parents weren't either. I'm used to it. That doesn't make it okay. No, I agreed. But it's reality. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she picked up her pen. Hey, let's do this interview. And I'm going to do it properly as a journalist, because your work deserves proper recognition. But after, she paused. After we need to talk. Not as journalist and subject. As people. Okay. For the next 90 minutes, Emma was completely professional. She asked thoughtful questions about neural systems technology, about the challenges of raising venture capital as a young woman, about my vision for AI's role in healthcare and education. She asked about the technical breakthroughs we'd achieved, about our company culture, about how I'd built a team of world-class engineers. I relaxed into it. This was comfortable territory, talking about my work, explaining complex algorithms, discussing the future of artificial intelligence. This was who I was. Emma was good at her job. She knew when to dig deeper, when to let me talk, when to challenge my assumptions. I could see why she'd won a Pulitzer. At 11:30 she turned off her recorder. "That was incredible," she said. "Seriously, Lily. What you're building is going to change how people interact with information. The medical diagnosis application alone could save thousands of lives. That's the goal. And you did this all by the time you were 29. I had a lot of help. My team is exceptional." Emma packed up her equipment slowly. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Why didn't you ever tell Marcus? Or your family? Why did you let them think you were just doing normal tech work?" I thought about how to answer. I told them I founded a company. I told them when we got major clients, when we raised funding rounds. But they never asked follow-up questions. They never wanted details. And I got tired of trying to explain myself to people who weren't interested in listening. "But Marcus is your brother. Which makes it worse in some ways. If a stranger doesn't care about my work, fine. But your own family." I shrugged. "After a while you just stop trying." "I'm so sorry," Emma said quietly. "And I'm sorry I'm part of this. That my career was used as an excuse to exclude you. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm marrying someone who did, though. That makes me complicit." She stood gathering her things. "I need to call Marcus. I need to understand how this happened. How he could be so blind to his own sister's achievements." "Emma, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. Lily, I'm an investigative journalist. I dig into corruption, expose injustice, hold powerful people accountable. I can't do that professionally and then ignore this kind of casual cruelty in my personal life." He picked up her bag. "Thank you for the interview. The article will run next week. And I'm sorry for all of it." She left. I sat in the conference room for a few minutes, looking out at the Palo Alto skyline. My phone buzzed. Raj asking about a technical decision we needed to make. Kelly confirming tomorrow's board meeting. A venture capitalist requesting a meeting about potential Series E funding. My real life. The one Marcus knew nothing about. The call came at 3:47 p.m. "Marcus." I let it ring through to voicemail. Then listened to the message. "Lily, what the fuck? Emma just called me. She's furious. She said you're the CEO of some billion-dollar company? That can't be right. She must have misunderstood. Call me back. We need to talk about this." I deleted the message without responding. He called again at 4:15 p.m. Again at 5:30 p.m. At 6 p.m. he texted. "Marcus, Emma is saying the wedding is off. She won't tell me why. Did you say something to her? What happened at that interview?" Me, I answered her questions about neural systems. So, "Marcus, what's neural systems?" I stared at that text for a long time. What's neural systems? The company I'd spent 6 years building. The company I'd mentioned probably 50 times in family conversations. The company I'd poured my entire adult life into. And he didn't even know its name. Me, it's the company I founded and run. The one Emma interviewed me about for Forbes. "Marcus, you run a company? Since when?" Me, "Since 2018. "Marcus, you never told me that." Me, "I told you I started a company in 2018. I told you when we got our first major client in 2019. I told you when we raised series of funding in 2020. I told you when we hit profitability in 2021. I told you when we raised Series B in 2022. You never asked for details." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. "Marcus, I thought you meant like a small consulting thing. A side project. A real company. With 340 employees. And $2.1 billion valuation." "Marcus, what?" "I have to go. Board meeting prep." I turned off my phone. The Forbes article ran the following Monday. The headline read, "At 29, Lily Parker built an AI empire that's changing healthcare forever." The article was beautiful. Emma had captured not just the technical achievements but the vision behind neural systems, using artificial intelligence to make expert knowledge accessible to everyone, democratizing information that had previously been locked away in specialist silos. She quoted me extensively, included photos of our offices and our team, detailed our major breakthroughs. She called me one of the most important young voices in technology, and a model for what's possible when brilliant minds tackle real-world problems. The article went viral. By Tuesday morning, we'd received 147 media requests. The Wall Street Journal wanted an interview. TechCrunch wanted a profile. NPR wanted me on their show. My phone, which I'd turned back on Monday night, had 23 missed calls from Marcus and 14 text messages. I read through them. They progressed from confusion to anger to panic to something that looked like genuine distress. Marcus, why didn't you tell me? Marcus, Mom and Dad are freaking out. They had no idea either. Marcus. Emma broke off the engagement. She said she can't marry someone who doesn't even know his own sister. Marcus. Lily, please call me. I need to understand what happened. Marcus, I know I fucked up. I know I should have paid more attention. But please talk to me. The last message had come at 2:47 a.m. Marcus. I read the Forbes article. You're incredible. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I should have felt vindicated. Triumphant even. My brother who'd dismissed me, who'd uninvited me from his wedding, was finally seeing what he'd missed. Dad, I just felt tired. I called him Tuesday afternoon, during a break between meetings. Lily. He answered on the first ring. Thank you for calling. I've been going crazy. I've been busy. I know. I read about it. The Forbes article, and then I Googled you, and holy shit, Lily. You're everywhere. There are articles about you in Bloomberg, in TechCrunch, in Wired. You gave a keynote at some AI conference. You were on a panel at Stanford. You're on the board of 2 nonprofits. Yes. Why didn't I know any of this? Because you never asked, Marcus. Not once in 6 years did you ask me what I was actually working on. What my company did. What my title was. Whether things were going well. I don't know what I thought. That you were doing okay but nothing special. That you were happy with a quiet tech job. I have a PhD from Stanford. I published 12 papers before I graduated. What part of that suggested I wanted a quiet job? Silence. Then, I'm an idiot. Yes. Emma won't talk to me. She said I don't see the women in my life clearly. That I assumed you were less successful because you're my little sister and you're quieter than me. She said it's a pattern of casual sexism she can't ignore. She's right. I know she's right. But Lily, you're my sister. If this was some stranger, fine, I'm an ass who makes assumptions. But you could have corrected me. You could have told me what you were doing. I did tell you. Over and over. You just didn't listen. More silence. What do I do? He asked finally. How do I fix this? I don't know if you can. Not quickly. This isn't about one mistake, Marcus. It's about 6 years of not caring enough to pay attention. It's about uninviting me from your wedding because you were embarrassed by what you thought I did. It's about, I stopped feeling the anger I'd been suppressing finally surface. It's about the fact that I achieved something remarkable and my own family didn't even notice. I notice now. Because you were forced to. Because Emma confronted you. Because Forbes published an article. Not because you actually looked at me and saw who I was. You're right. His voice was thick. You're absolutely right. And I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry, Lily. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix 6 years. What about Emma? Can you talk to her? Tell her I'm trying to understand, to be better. No, I said firmly. Emma made her decision based on who you showed her you were. That's between you two. I'm not going to advocate for you when I'm not sure you've actually changed. I have changed. Reading about your work, seeing what you've built. That's not change, Marcus. That's just finally having information. Change is recognizing why you didn't have that information. Why you never sought it out. Why you made assumptions about your sister's life and never questioned them. He was quiet for a long time. Will you at least have dinner with me? Let me try to understand. Maybe. Eventually. Right now, I have a company to run and about 100 media requests to handle because Forbes called me one of the most important young voices in technology. I paused. Which you would have known about if you'd ever Googled me. I'll Google you every day from now on. he said, trying for humor. Don't. Just talk to me. Actually ask me questions. Actually listen to the answers. That's all I ever wanted. I hung up before he could respond. Emma called me 3 days later. Lily, it's Emma. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. It's fine. I wanted to let you know, I'm not getting back together with Marcus. I've broken off the engagement permanently. I'm sorry, I said and meant it. Don't be. You were right. This wasn't about one incident. It was about a pattern of not seeing. Not seeing you, not seeing women's accomplishments, not seeing his own privilege. She paused. I spent 2 days going through his social media, his conversations, the way he talks about people. He posts constantly about his own career achievements. He never mentioned you once. Not even to say, my sister works in tech. You were invisible to him. I know. That's not love. That's not even basic respect. I can't build a life with someone like that. I understand. Thank you, by the way. For doing the interview despite everything. For being professional. For sharing your incredible work with me. You're good at what you do, I said. The article was fair and thorough. I tried. I wanted people to see you the way I saw you in that conference room. Brilliant, driven, changing the world. Not the way Marcus sees you or saw you. As an afterthought. After we hung up, I thought about that word. Afterthought. That's what I'd been to my family. The smart one who did computer stuff. The quiet one who didn't need much attention. The one who was fine so they could focus on Marcus and his more legible achievements. I'd built a $2.1 billion company and I was still an afterthought. The rest of the week was chaos. The Forbes article had opened floodgates. We had investors calling about Series E funding. Universities wanted me to speak. Other companies wanted to discuss partnerships or acquisitions. On Friday, I gave a presentation at a major AI conference in San Francisco. 2,000 people in attendance. I talked about Neural Systems' medical diagnostic tool, about how our algorithms could analyze patient symptoms and medical histories to suggest diagnoses that human doctors might miss. It was the biggest audience I'd ever presented to. I was terrified. But I stood on that stage and I talked about my work and people listened. Really listened. They asked smart questions. They challenged my assumptions. They wanted to collaborate to build on what we'd created. Afterward, a woman approached me in the lobby. Mid-40s, kind face, professorial demeanor. Dr. Parker, I'm Sandra Liu. I'm a professor at UCSF Medical School. I've been following your work for 2 years. That diagnostic tool you've developed could revolutionize how we train medical students. Would you be open to discussing a research partnership? Absolutely, I said. We talked for 20 minutes about applications in medical education, about how AI could supplement human judgment rather than replace it, about the ethical considerations of automated diagnosis. You're doing important work, she said as we exchanged contact information. Don't let anyone diminish what you've accomplished here. Walking to my car, I called my parents. They answered on the third ring, both of them on speaker. Lily, we were just talking about you, Mom said. We read the Forbes article. We had no idea you were doing so well. I've been telling you about the company for 6 years. Well, yes, but you never said it was this big. $2.1 billion? That's like Mark Zuckerberg money. It's really not. We're not Facebook. Still. Our daughter, the CEO. Dad's voice was warm. Proud. We're telling everyone. The neighbors, our friends, everyone. Did you tell them you didn't know what I did until Forbes published an article? Silence. Lily, Mom said carefully, that's not fair. You were always so private about your work. I wasn't private. I was available. You just never asked. More silence. You're right, Dad said finally. We didn't ask. We should have. We're sorry. It was something. Not enough, but something. Marcus is devastated, Mom added. Emma broke off the engagement. He says it's because of what happened with you. It's because of how Marcus treated me. There's a difference. He's your brother. Can't you forgive him? Eventually, maybe. But not until he understands what he did wrong. Not until he actually sees me. We see you, Dad said. We're proud of you. We always have been. You're proud now that Forbes validated me. You're proud now that you have something to brag about to your friends. But when I was doing the hard work, when I was building this company from nothing, struggling through the early years, you didn't care then. That's not true. It is true. When I told you we'd raised our Series A, you asked when I was going to get a real job. When I told you we'd hit profitability, you changed the subject to Marcus's promotion. When I told you we'd raise Series B, you asked why I wasn't dating anyone. My voice was steady but my hands were shaking. I love you both. But you've never cared about my work. You've cared about whether my work made me acceptable by your standards. And it never did until someone else told you it was important. Lily, please. I have to go. I have a conference call with our Tokyo office. I hung up. That night, alone in my apartment, I let myself cry. Not from sadness exactly. From release. From finally saying the things I'd kept inside for years. From acknowledging the hurt instead of minimizing it. Marcus came to Palo Alto 2 weeks later. He texted first, asking if he could visit. I told him okay, but just for coffee. Nothing more. We met at a cafe near my office. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, his usually neat hair disheveled. He'd lost weight. Thank you for seeing me, he said as we sat down with our drinks. You look awful. I feel awful. I can't sleep. I keep thinking about all the times I could have asked you about your work and didn't. All the times you tried to tell me things and I didn't listen. That's good. You should think about it. He winced. I deserve that. I deserve all of it. He pulled out his phone. I made a list. Of every time I remember you mentioning your company and I didn't follow up. It's embarrassingly long. I didn't ask to see it. Emma won't take my calls, he continued. I wrote her a letter. Apologizing, explaining that I'm working on myself, that I understand what I did wrong. She sent it back unopened. That's her choice. I know. I thought if you could forgive me, maybe she would too. I haven't forgiven you yet, Marcus. I'm having coffee with you. That's different. He nodded, looking miserable. What do I have to do to earn forgiveness? I don't know. Maybe start by actually understanding what I do. Ask me questions. Real questions. Not because you want me to advocate with Emma, but because you actually care. Okay. He pulled out a notebook. Hey. Tell me about neural systems. From the beginning. Everything. So I did. I told him about the idea that sparked in my final year of my PhD, using natural language processing to make expert knowledge accessible. About founding the company with 2 classmates in a rented office space in Mountain View. About the first year when we had no clients and I maxed out my credit cards to keep us afloat. I told him about our first major client, a hospital system that wanted to pilot our diagnostic tool. About the terrifying moment when we pitched to our first venture capital firm. About the series of funding that let us hire real engineers and expand our technology. I told him about the hard years, the competing products, the technical setbacks, the employees who left, the investors who doubted us. About the moment when our algorithm correctly diagnosed a rare condition that 3 human doctors had missed, and we realized we were onto something real. I told him about scaling from 10 employees to 50 to 200. About opening offices in London and Singapore. About the Series C and Series D funding rounds that had valued us at over $2 billion. Marcus listened. He took notes. He asked questions, good questions, thoughtful questions. The medical diagnosis application, he said. You said it saved lives. Can you quantify that? We estimate our tool has contributed to approximately 340 earlier diagnoses of serious conditions over the past 2 years. Earlier diagnosis improves outcomes significantly, so yes, we believe we've saved lives. That's incredible, Lily. You're literally saving people's lives with code. With AI algorithms trained on vast medical datasets, but yes. He was quiet for a moment. I never knew. I never bothered to know. You were doing this, building this, saving lives, changing medicine, and I thought you were doing IT support. You thought what you wanted to think. That I was safe and small and not threatening to your role as the successful sibling. He flinched but didn't argue. You're right. I needed you to be less than me because I'm insecure about my own achievements. You have a PhD from Stanford. You're changing the world. And what am I? A marketing director. Upper middle management at a company I didn't build. There's nothing wrong with that, Marcus. It's good work. Important work. But it's not what you're doing. And instead of being proud of you, being inspired by you, I diminished you. I made you small so I could feel big. Yes, I said simply. We sat in silence for a while. The cafe was busy around us. Other tech workers, students from Stanford, the ambient noise of a Silicon Valley Tuesday afternoon. Can I come to your office? Marcus asked. See where you work. Meet your team. I thought about it. Not yet. Maybe eventually. But right now that space is mine. It's where I'm valued and seen and respected. I'm not ready to bring family complications into it. I understand. Do you? Because I'm not sure you do. My work is where I matter, Marcus. It's where people care about my ideas, where my accomplishments count, where I'm not just someone's little sister. I need to protect that space. From me, he said quietly. From anyone who might make me feel invisible again. Yes, including you. He nodded, his eyes red. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for making you feel that way. For being that person. I know you are. But sorry is just words. I need to see change. Real, sustained change. Not because you feel guilty, but because you've genuinely understood what you did wrong. I'm trying. I promise I'm trying. We finished our coffee. As we stood to leave, Marcus hesitated. One more question. About your work. What? What's next for neural systems? What's the big goal? I smiled slightly. It was a good question. The kind of question someone who was actually interested would ask. We're working on educational applications. Imagine an AI tutor that can adapt to each student's learning style, that can explain complex concepts in multiple ways until something clicks. Democratizing not just medical knowledge but all knowledge. That could change everything. Especially for kids in underfunded schools. That's the goal. Equity through technology. That's amazing. He paused. Can I follow your work? Read about what you're doing? I promise not to be weird about it or use it as an excuse to contact you constantly. I just want to know. I want to actually see what you're building. Hey, I said. We have a blog where we post about new developments. You can subscribe to that. I will. Thank you. We walked out into the sunlight. Marcus headed toward his rental car. I turned back toward my office. Lily, he called. I turned. I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago. I should have said it every time you told me about the company. But I'm saying it now. I'm so proud of you. It was what I'd wanted to hear for years. But hearing it now after everything, it felt hollow. Like receiving an award from someone who'd never watched your performance. Thank you, I said. But I don't need you to be proud of me, Marcus. I need you to see me. There's a difference. I walked away. 3 months later, Emma called me again. Lily, I hope I'm not overstepping. But I wanted you to know. I'm working on a longer piece about women in tech for the Times. I'd like to include you if you're willing. What's the angle? How the tech industry sees women versus how it should see them. About accomplishment that goes unrecognized because it doesn't fit expected narratives. About what it takes to succeed when you're constantly underestimated. She paused. About being invisible to the people who should see you most clearly. That's personal. It is. But I think it's important. And I think your story could help other women who feel unseen. I thought about all the young women in STEM programs, working twice as hard for half the recognition. About the brilliant engineers on my team who told me about being dismissed by professors, investors, even family members. Hey, I said. Let's do it. The article ran in the New York Times Magazine 2 months later. Emma had interviewed dozens of women in tech, but my story anchored the piece. The PhD from Stanford who built a billion-dollar company while her own family thought she did IT support. The response was overwhelming. I received hundreds of emails from women sharing their own stories of being underestimated, overlooked, dismissed. From daughters whose parents didn't understand their work. From sisters overshadowed by brothers. From women who'd achieved extraordinary things and still felt invisible. I responded to as many as I could. Shared resources, made connections, offered advice. One email stood out. It was from Marcus. Subject: I read the article. Lily. I read Emma's piece in the Times. Seeing our story in print from your perspective made me realize how much damage I did. Not just by uninviting you from the wedding, but by years of not seeing you. I've been going to therapy. Working on why I needed you to be less successful than me. Why I made assumptions instead of asking questions. Why I valued conventional achievement over actual accomplishment. It's hard work. I'm not fixed. But I'm trying. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a relationship like we had before. We never really had a relationship where you were fully seen. But I want you to know I see you now. I read about your work. I follow neural systems. I'm learning about AI so I can understand what you're doing. Not because I feel guilty, but because you're my sister and you're remarkable and I want to know who you actually are. I'm proud of you. Not because Forbes told me to be, but because I've done the work to understand what you've built, what you've overcome, what you're trying to change about the world. I love you. I'm sorry it took me so long to show it. Marcus. I read it 3 times. Then I called him. Lily, he answered surprised. I didn't expect you to call. I read your email. You're in therapy? Yeah. Twice a week. It's helping. I'm starting to understand why I did what I did. Why I needed you to be small. And it was about me, not you. About my own insecurity. About being threatened by your intelligence and achievements instead of celebrating them. About being raised to think success looked a certain way and not being able to see it when it looked different. It was the right answer. The honest answer. I'm having a company event next month, I said. A celebration for reaching 500 employees. You can come if you want. Meet my team. See what we've built. Silence. Then, really? Yes. But Marcus, if you come as my brother who's trying to understand, not as someone who already knows everything. You listen more than you talk. You ask questions. You stay humble. I can do that. I want to do that. Hey, I'll send you the details. Thank you, Lily. Thank you for giving me another chance. Just don't waste it. The company celebration was held at our Palo Alto headquarters. 500 employees, plus partners and families. We'd rented out the entire building, set up a stage for speeches, brought in catering, created an atmosphere of joy and accomplishment. I gave a speech about what we'd built together, about the lives we'd changed, about the future we were creating. About how Neural Systems wasn't just a company, it was a mission to democratize knowledge, to make expertise accessible, to level playing fields that had been tilted for too long. The team cheered. These people knew me, valued me, saw me clearly. Marcus stood in the back watching. I saw him taking it all in. The scale of what we'd built, the diversity of our team, the genuine affection people had for each other and for the work. After my speech, Raj pulled me aside. Your brother's here. I know. I invited him. He's been asking people questions. About you, about the company. Good questions. Respectful questions. Good. Later, Marcus found me near the food tables. This is incredible, he said. The energy here, the people, they really believe in what you're doing. They should. We're doing important work. I know. I understand that now. Really understand it. He looked around. I talked to your CTO, Raj. He told me about the medical project, about the lives you've saved. He showed me some of the code. I didn't understand most of it, but he walked me through how it works. Lily, it's brilliant. You're brilliant. I've always been brilliant, Marcus. You just never looked. I know. And I'm sorry. I'll keep being sorry for the rest of my life. He paused. But I'm also going to be better. I'm going to be the brother who sees you, who celebrates you, who understands what you're building here. I looked at him, really looked. He was trying. It showed in the thoughtful questions, in the notebook he'd been carrying around, in the way he listened to my employees talk about their work. Keep showing up, I said. Keep trying. Keep asking questions. That's all I need. I will. I promise. Across the room I saw Emma. She'd come as a guest of one of my engineers who she'd interviewed for a follow-up piece. She caught my eye, smiled, raised her glass in acknowledgement. I smiled back. Later that night, after everyone had left, I stood in my office looking out at the Stanford campus in the distance. The university where I'd discovered my passion for AI. Where I'd built the foundation for everything that came after. I'd built a company worth $2.1 billion. I'd saved lives with technology. I'd been recognized by Forbes, the Times, the tech industry at large. But what felt best wasn't the success. It was finally being seen. By my team. By my peers. By journalists like Emma who took the time to understand. And now, slowly, by my family. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined when Marcus uninvited me from his wedding. It wasn't clean or dramatic or perfectly resolved. But it was real. And real was enough. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. Marcus, thank you for letting me come tonight. For letting me see who you really are. I won't waste this chance. Good. See you at Sunday dinner at Mom and Dad's? Marcus, I'll be there. And I promise, I'll tell them about your work properly. No more Lily does tech stuff. The real story. Me, they won't understand half of it. Marcus, then I'll help them understand. That's what family does. I smiled and pocketed my phone. That's what family does. When they're really trying. When they're really seeing you. Finally,